Peak oil, I believe, probably is happening as we speak, or maybe it has happened. What these difficult economic circumstances mean is that investment is being delayed into projects which are going to affect the slope of the decline curve after the peak. The fields that we're moving into now, these deep water fields, very remote fields, perhaps in the Arctic, other areas, are going to require even more technology to achieve good recovery rates. But I don't doubt that the industry has the ability to produce the technology that's needed. What's in doubt is the investment that's needed for the industry to actually do those things. A world of volatile oil prices, such as we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, is not the sort of world where it's easy to make decisions about projects which aren't going to deliver maximum cash flow or deliver profit for 10, 12, 15 years. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing fields which are more difficult to develop. We're seeing fields which are more expensive to develop, but we're seeing an economic climate which makes it virtually impossible for companies to commit to funds on projects which won't deliver return for 12, 15 years.
Often you will see forward curves. I mean, I've seen some from oil companies that say, yes, we will reach a certain number, very high number of supply. But when you look at those numbers carefully, you'll find things like non-OPEC declining, biomass and alternatives and extra heavy crudes and such being small and also flat. And then you'll see a big wedge of new capacity, and somehow that's going to come out of OPEC or some similar solution. But you stop and think about it, who's OPEC? Well, Iran is OPEC, and Iran has serious problems. Nigeria has OPEC, and they have problems. Indonesia is a net importer. It's not even an OPEC anymore. Venezuela has been in decline for a long time. The Arabian Gulf, we have real issues with maturity in many of these fields. So even this OPEC is no rabbit out of the hat. It's, challenged to sustain capacity. Now, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is doing a fantastic job, has been for years. But Saudi Arabia is not OPEC. Saudi Arabia is Saudi Arabia, and it has had a long history of sustaining capacity. Russia, on the other hand, targeted 12 million barrels a day only a few years ago. It hasn't reached 10. Mexico, a major producer, is in decline. North Sea, severe decline. So these kind of complacent positions, or these centers of information or knowledge that try to pacify people, try to tell people there is no challenge, with good intentions, are probably compromising the solutions. They're not helping.
If we look at the sort of numbers that we could have for the maximum oil production capacity, at the moment my analysis would say that you can't really get much further than the 92 to 94 range. Now, this obviously contrasts with some of the public agencies that are still talking about 100 million barrels, more than 100 million barrels production. The challenge, if you like, is simply in order to get to those 100 millions, what they're doing is they're saying, we mobilize great chunks of the tar sand, we get great numbers out of that. But this doesn't quite hold water, because if you look at the actual rates at which the tar sands have been mobilized, which actually has never been more than about 300,000 barrels a day in any one year, double that and extrapolate it forward, you're still not getting to very big numbers. And when you take into account the depletion, which is probably running at about 4 million barrels a day in the existing supply, this is what gives you the peak. What gives you the peak is the fact that depletion is eating away at the capacity you've got all the time. Your new capacity is coming in to offset that. But If you're to actually go higher, it has got to more than offset it, and more than offset it by a useful amount. And it simply becomes mathematically improbable that you can drive it right out towards these 100 or 100 plus figures that are still being bandied about.
I've been tracking the number of projects for a long time globally, both in the Middle East and elsewhere, Russia, North America, Brazil, West Africa. And a lot of this information is in public domain, so there's no mystery there. The IEA recently reported on the same numbers. The bottom line is there are not enough projects. There is not enough new capacity coming online within, say, the next 5 to 6 years to make up for global declines. And that's assuming a very moderate level of declines, a 6.5% decline rate for non-OPEC, perhaps a 3.5 to 4% decline rate for OPEC. Even at these modest decline rates, we are basically going to see a shortage of capacity within 2 to 3 years. We're being lulled by this excess capacity currently, which is more to do with the lower demand than anything to do with supply. Yeah, so we do have a problem in the near term. In the longer term, it's even worse, because in the longer term, the lead time to discover, develop, and put online production runs into 10 years. And there isn't enough being done in the long term as well. So it's both a short and a long-term problem.